Welcome to our deep dive into Principles, Life, and Work by Ray Dalio. You might be familiar with this book. It's been downloaded over 3 million times.
Wow.
And today we're going to unpack the unique approach to life and work that Dalio, founder of Bridgewater Associates, has developed.
Yeah, this book essentially lays out Dalio's personal recipes for success, principles he's honed over decades in the markets, and managing people at one of the world's most successful investment firms.
A great way to put it, recipes for success.
Yeah.
I like how Dalio actually uses that analogy in the book.
Yeah.
He describes principles as these fundamental truths, almost like algorithms that guide your behavior and can lead to desired outcomes.
It's fascinating how he emphasizes the importance of thinking for yourself and really being clear about your own principles.
Right.
You know, not just adopting someone else's, but figuring out what truly works for you.
And then how crucial it is to surround yourself with people who share similar values.
Absolutely.
He's big on finding alignment, right?
Absolutely. Dalio believes that without principles, we'd be constantly reacting to everything life throws at us as if it were brand new,
Right.
instead of having a framework to deal with recurring challenges.
Which, let's be honest, would be exhausting.
Yeah.
So having these principles, you're approaching situations strategically.
Right.
You're not starting from scratch every time.
Exactly. And Dalio really walks the walk on this. He's even coded his principles into algorithms.
Wow.
He found that computers free from emotional biases could sometimes make better decisions than humans using his system.
That's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. But before we get too deep into the system itself, I'm curious about how he arrived at these principles.
Yeah.
His journey wasn't exactly a straight line to success, was it?
Not at all. Dalio had that entrepreneurial drive early on, even trading in the livestock markets as a teenager.
Can you imagine trying to predict pork belly prices when most kids are worried about what's for lunch?
It speaks to his early interest in markets, especially concrete ones like commodities. But then, in 1982, he had a major setback.
Uh-oh.
He predicted a huge debt bust that didn't quite pan out and nearly bankrupted Bridgewater.
That had to be a humbling experience, to say the least.
It was a turning point.
Yeah.
It forced him to confront his own fallibility and realize that being able to adapt to new information was more crucial than just trying to predict the future.
So it pushed him to double down on building systems, collecting data, and constantly refining his principles. He wasn't content to just sit back and hope for the best.
And this rigorous approach paid off big time.
Yeah.
Think about how Bridgewater successfully navigated the 2008 financial crisis, while so many others were caught off guard.
Right. They were already stress testing their models against historical debt crises, including the Great Depression.
Yeah.
That seems like it would be useful for anyone, not just finance folks.
It highlights the importance of not assuming the future will perfectly mirror the past and having systems in place to deal with a range of possibilities.
Okay, so let's get into some of these principles. One that jumps out is idea meritocracy.
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice?
It's about creating an environment where the best ideas win, no matter who they come from. At Bridgewater, this means everyone, even Dalio himself, is open to being challenged.
Wow.
Dissent is valued, not punished.
He talks about the importance of radical truth and radical transparency, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He believes you can only solve problems if they're brought out into the open, no matter how uncomfortable that might be.
I imagine that can lead to some pretty intense conversations.
Yeah.
But Dalio seems to believe the results are worth it. He argues that this type of openness leads to more meaningful work and more meaningful relationships.
He even uses baseball cards for employees at Bridgewater.
Baseball cards.
These cards list each person's strengths and weaknesses, which are assessed through feedback and various metrics.
So you can quickly see who's best suited for what task. Kind of like knowing your star pitcher isn't the best person to send up the bat in a clutch situation.
Exactly. It's about leveraging people's strengths and having a clear understanding of who excels at what.
So it's not about being the best at everything. It's about knowing yourself and where you fit into the larger system. Which reminds me of another fascinating idea from the book, The 2 U's. What's that all about?
Dalio believes we all have 2 parts to our brain: the emotional lower-level self and the logical higher-level self.
It's like that angel and devil on your shoulder image.
Yeah.
But it's actually inside your own head.
Yeah.
We've all felt that struggle, haven't we?
And Dalio argues that learning to manage that internal conflict is crucial for making good decisions.
Right.
He even suggests using tools like meditation to quiet that emotional voice and allow the logical side to take over.
That's a bit more zen than I expected from a Wall Street titan, but it makes sense, especially when you're dealing with high-pressure situations.
Yeah.
So you're saying he doesn't shy away from the inner work aspect of success?
Not at all. He sees it as foundational, and it ties into another key principle, believability-weighted decision-making.
Okay, that one really intrigued me, like a more formalized version of don't take financial advice from your broke uncle.
Right.
Right.
There's some truth to that, but it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that some people have simply earned the right to have their opinions carry more weight.
So someone with a proven track record in a specific area, their input is valued more highly than someone who's just spouting opinions.
Exactly. And this ties back to his emphasis on data and systems. At Bridgewater, they actually have a system for tracking everyone's track record, so you can see who's consistently made good calls in the past. They don't just go on gut feeling.
It makes you wonder if they have a rating system or something, like how many points your opinion is worth based on your past performance.
It's a fascinating idea, isn't it? This systematized approach to valuing expertise seems incredibly valuable, especially in a field like finance, where decisions have real-world consequences.
Yeah.
And remember, Dalio's principles were forged through his own experiences, both successes and failures.
It makes you wonder what those baseball cards would look like for someone like him given his journey, but we've covered a lot of ground already.
Perhaps our listener would like a moment to reflect on what we've discussed so far before we dive into more of Dalio's insights.
That's a great idea. Grab a coffee, take a walk, and we'll be right back to explore more of this fascinating framework. See you on the other side.
Welcome back. I trust you've had a moment to ponder some of the ideas we've discussed so far.
I've definitely been thinking about those baseball cards.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what my strengths and weaknesses would be according to Dalio's system. But for now, I'm ready to dive back into the rest of his framework.
Excellent. Well, you asked earlier about Dalio's own journey.
Right.
One thing that stands out is his 5-step process for achieving goals.
Okay.
Which he applies to both his personal and professional life.
5 steps to achieving anything. Now that sounds ambitious. I'm all ears.
Yeah.
What's the first step?
It all starts with having clear goals.
Okay.
Dalio emphasizes knowing what you truly want, not just what you think you should want, or what society tells you is important.
Right.
It's about aligning your goals with your values.
So no chasing that fancy car just to impress the neighbors.
Exactly.
You've got to dig deeper than that.
He warns against mistaking the trappings of success for true success.
Right.
It's not about external validation. It's about internal fulfillment. And he encourages being radically open-minded during this process.
Yeah.
Don't rule out a goal just because it seems impossible at first glance.
I like that. Big dreams, big goals.
Yeah.
But once you have that clarity, what's next?
That's where step 2 comes in, identifying the problems that stand in your way.
Okay.
Dalio believes problems are inevitable. They're part of the process.
Right.
But they're also opportunities for growth. He famously said, every problem you find is an opportunity to improve your machine.
So it's not about avoiding problems or pretending they don't exist.
Right.
It's about tackling them head on.
Right, and this is where his principle of radical truth comes into play again.
Yeah.
You need to see things as they truly are, not how you wish they were to effectively address them.
This makes me think about how some people might view this approach as overly harsh or critical. But it sounds like Dalio believes this honesty, even if it's uncomfortable, is essential for growth.
He does, and he's not afraid to apply this to himself in his book.
Yeah.
He talks openly about his own mistakes and what he's learned from them.
Wow.
He sees failure as a necessary part of the learning process.
That's refreshing to hear, especially from someone who's achieved so much. It humanizes the process.
Yeah.
So once you've identified the problems you're facing, what then?
Step 3 is to diagnose those problems and get to the root cause.
Okay.
Dalio emphasizes going beyond surface-level explanations and asking why multiple times until you reach the core issue.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It's all about digging deeper, being thorough, not just slapping a Band-Aid on a problem and calling it a day.
Exactly. It's like being a detective for your own life. And once you understand the root cause, you can move on to step 4, which is designing solutions.
Okay, so that's where the creativity comes in, right?
Yeah.
Coming up with the plan of attack.
Yes, but it's not just about brainstorming any solution.
Okay.
Dalio stresses considering the second and third order consequences.
Right.
It's not enough to just think about the immediate outcome. You have to anticipate the ripple effects.
He gives the example of wishing for no rainy days.
Yes, which sounds great at first, but then you realize that also means no rainbows, no lush landscapes.
So it's about thinking holistically. understanding how different parts of the system are interconnected.
Exactly. And finally, step 5, and perhaps the most important one,
Okay.
is pushing through to completion.
Yep.
Dalio is a firm believer that great planners who don't execute their plans go nowhere.
It's about taking action.
It's about having the discipline to actually implement the solutions you've designed.
So you can have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't act on them, they're just ideas. You need to be a doer, not just a thinker.
He believes that good work habits are often overlooked and stresses the importance of establishing metrics and tracking progress.
That's where a lot of us stumble.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and lose sight of those bigger goals.
Yeah.
But this 5-step process seems like a valuable tool for anyone,
Absolutely.
regardless of what they're trying to achieve.
It's a framework for staying focused and systematically tackling challenges. And while it applies to achieving any goal, Dalio also has a lot to say about building and managing great organizations.
I'm especially interested in how his principles of radical truth and radical transparency play out in that context. I imagine it can be challenging to create that type of environment, especially as organizations grow larger.
It is, but Dalio believes it's essential for a healthy organization.
Okay.
He envisions workplaces where problems are brought to the surface, openly debated, and resolved in a meritocratic way.
So it all comes back to that idea of idea meritocracy we talked about earlier.
Exactly. He wants to see companies where the best ideas win, no matter who they come from, and where everyone feels comfortable challenging each other,
Right.
even those in positions of authority.
I can see how that could lead to more innovative solutions and a more engaged workforce.
Right.
But I'm also curious about the potential downsides. Is there a risk that this kind of radical transparency could create a culture of fear
Yeah.
or discourage honest feedback?
That's a valid concern, and Dalio acknowledges that it takes work to create a culture where people feel safe to speak up,
Right.
even when they disagree.
Yeah.
He talks about the importance of building trust and psychological safety within teams.
So it's not just about being brutally honest all the time.
Yeah.
It's about creating an environment where that honesty can be productive and lead to positive change.
Right, and he believes that systems and protocols are crucial for scaling this type of culture.
Yeah.
He talks about tools they use at Bridgewater, like the dot collector and those baseball cards we discussed earlier.
So it's about finding a balance between encouraging open debate and having clear systems in place to channel that debate productively.
Exactly. And Dalio stresses that everyone needs to be on board with this approach. He says, if an idea meritocracy doesn't work well, the fault doesn't lie in the concept. It lies in people not valuing it enough to make sure that it works.
So it's not a magic bullet.
Right.
It requires buy-in and commitment from everyone involved.
Right. And this ties into his whole philosophy of building a strong company culture. He's very intentional about hiring people who align with his values and who can thrive in this type of environment.
I imagine his hiring practices are pretty rigorous.
Yeah.
What does he look for in potential hires?
Well, intelligence is important, of course, but Dalio places even greater emphasis on character traits like integrity, humility, and that open-mindedness we talked about earlier. He also believes that different people are wired differently.
Yeah.
And that it's important to build teams with a diverse range of skills and perspectives.
So it's not about finding a bunch of mini Dalios.
Right.
It's about finding people who complement each other and bring different strengths to the table.
Exactly. And once he's hired those talented folks, Dalio emphasizes the importance of ongoing training, testing, evaluating, and even sorting.
With sorting, as in letting people go if they don't fit in or aren't performing.
It's not always easy, but Dalio believes it's essential for maintaining a high-performance culture.
Right.
He says if someone can't do the job after being trained and given time to learn, get rid of them. If they can, promote them.
So it's a pretty results-oriented approach.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like he believes in giving people a fair chance to succeed.
He does, and he stresses that this process should be done fairly and transparently. It's about giving people clear feedback, helping them understand their strengths and weaknesses, and providing opportunities for growth.
So it's not about being ruthless.
Right.
It's about being honest and helping people find roles where they can truly excel, which, if you think about it, aligns with his overall philosophy of radical transparency.
Exactly. He believes that by being open and honest about people's performance, you create an environment where everyone can learn and grow, both individually and collectively. It all ties together quite nicely.
It's a lot to take in, for sure.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm finding Dalio's approach to life and work incredibly thought-provoking. What about you? What stands out to you the most from what we've covered so far?
I think what fascinates me most is how Dalio manages to bridge the gap between these seemingly contradictory ideas. He embraces both radical transparency and the importance of building trust. He values data and systems, but also recognizes the role of human intuition and creativity.
And he's able to apply these principles to both the high-stakes world of finance and the more personal realm of relationships and personal fulfillment. But speaking of personal fulfillment, there's one key aspect of Dalio's philosophy we haven't touched on yet, the role of meaningful work and meaningful relationships in a fulfilling life.
Yes, that's a crucial piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And it deserves its own dedicated space in our exploration.
Agreed. So, dear listener, take a moment to digest everything we've discussed so far. Maybe grab another coffee, do some deep breathing, whatever helps you process this dense but insightful material. We'll be back soon for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore how Dalio connects work, relationships, and the pursuit of a truly meaningful life. See you there. Welcome back to our deep dive into Ray Dalio's principles. We've been on quite a journey exploring his unique approach to life and work.
It certainly has, and we've covered a lot of ground, from idea meritocracy to believability weighted decision-making to the concept of the 2 U's.
Right.
But there's one crucial piece of Dalio's philosophy we haven't fully explored yet.
We touched on it briefly earlier, the role of meaningful work and meaningful relationships in a fulfilling life.
Yeah.
It's something that resonates deeply with me.
With me as well. It's not just about achieving success in the traditional sense, it's about finding a deeper sense of purpose and connection.
So how does Dalio tie these concepts together? Is there a formula for finding that sweet spot?
He argues that meaningful work and meaningful relationships are essential components of a fulfilling life.
Okay.
Not just nice to haves.
Not just a warm and fuzzy sentiment. He backs it up with research, right?
Absolutely. He cites studies in neuroscience, psychology, and even evolutionary biology.
Wow.
He points out that the human brain is wired for social connection and cooperation.
Which makes sense when you think about it. We evolved to collaborate, to work together toward shared goals.
Yeah.
It's in our DNA.
And Dalio believes that when we find work that aligns with our values, allows us to contribute to something larger than ourselves. And when we cultivate strong relationships with people who share those values, that's when we experience true fulfillment.
It's not just about climbing the corporate ladder or making a ton of money.
Right.
It's about finding a sense of purpose.
Exactly. And he stresses that this doesn't require you to achieve some grand, universally recognized form of success. He actually says, a carpenter who derives his deepest satisfaction from working with wood can easily have a life as good or better than the President of the United States.
It's about finding what truly lights you up, what makes you feel alive, and pursuing that with passion regardless of external expectations.
And it's about recognizing that everyone has a unique contribution to make no matter their background or their chosen field.
So no more comparing ourselves to others or feeling like we're not enough.
Right.
It's about embracing our own journey and striving to be the best version of ourselves.
Precisely. And this brings us back to Dalio's emphasis on understanding your own wiring.
Yeah.
Those innate strengths and weaknesses we talked about earlier. By acknowledging these, we can make better choices about how we live and work, leading to greater fulfillment.
Those baseball cards are starting to make even more sense now.
Right. It's about figuring out what you're good at, what you genuinely enjoy, and what kind of environment allows you to thrive. Then it's about finding a role, a team, a community where you can leverage those strengths and make a meaningful contribution.
So it sounds like this self-awareness is a crucial first step.
Yeah.
But it's also an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
We're constantly evolving, right?
Absolutely. Dalio sees life as a continuous journey of growth and evolution. He says, what you will be will depend on the perspective you have. It's about staying curious, open to new experiences, and constantly refining our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
And this is where those principles we've been discussing come full circle.
Yeah.
Having a clear set of personal principles can guide our decisions, help us navigate challenges, and ultimately lead us towards a more fulfilling life.
It's not about blindly following Dalio's principles, but rather using his framework as inspiration to develop our own set of guiding principles, principles that resonate with us, align with our values, and help us live a life that feels both successful and deeply meaningful.
So to wrap up this deep dive into principles, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
I hope our listener feels empowered to think critically about their own life and work to question assumptions, embrace challenges, and strive for a life that is both successful by their own definition and filled with meaningful work and meaningful relationships.
That's a powerful message. And on that note, I think it's time for us to sign off. But before we do, I have one final thought-provoking question for our listener to ponder.
Ooh, I love a good parting question. Let's hear it.
If you were to create your own set of principles, what would they be? What fundamental truths would guide your decisions, shape your interactions, and help you create a life that feels truly aligned with who you are and what you want to achieve in this world?
What a fantastic question to leave our listener with. It's an invitation to embark on their own journey of self-discovery and create a set of guiding principles that will serve them well, both personally and professionally.
And that's what this deep dive has been all about, encouraging you to think differently, to explore new ideas, and to find your own unique paths to a fulfilling life. So, until next time, happy diving.
恭喜你又听完了一本书，订阅以便不错过更多精彩节目，也别忘了分享给你的朋友，一起快乐听书学英语。